bored. If only I had something I could do. What do you think? Ah, I've got an idea. And Mr. Jobber would love that idea. Let me ring him quickly. Oh, my battery's gone. How else can I contact Mr. Jobber? Ah, pen and paper. What an idea. Mr. Jobber!
A science lesson? Yes!
Hello Year 6, I hope that you've had a lovely weekend and I hope you're ready for another week full of learning. And this week we're going to be doing this. So that means that this week our question that we're going to be looking at is, how does the wingspan of a paper helicopter affect its falling time? And that's what we're going to be looking at from today until the end of the week, an interesting science experiment. You may have done this before at home or in school. If you have, that's fine. You can use your previous experience to help you. Before we get started though, we're going to look at some vocabulary we're going to use today that might be new to us. And there are 3 words, descent, wingspan and variable. If you want to pause the video and have a think about what those words mean, please do now. So descent is when something goes downwards, and that could be because someone's dropped it or because something's falling. The wingspan is a distance from one wing to other on an airplane, and variable is something that is likely to change. So they're the 3 words that we're going to look at as we go through our learning today. And like I said, our question is, how does the wingspan of a paper helicopter affect its falling time? So today I'm going to start off by showing you how we're going to write up our experiment, because before we do it we're going to need to begin to write up the title, the question, the hypothesis and the different variables. And then Mr. Jobber is then going to show you how to make the paper helicopter and then tomorrow you're going to actually complete the experiment. Whenever we complete a science experiment or a science investigation, one thing that we should always do is our investigation write-up. So we're going to start off by doing that today, and we're going to look at the first 4 sections, which will be the question, the hypothesis, the materials and the variables. There are more parts to it, but we'll complete them later in the week as we move through the experiment. You can choose to do this with me as I do it, and you may want to pause the video, or else you can choose to watch the video and then do it afterwards by yourself, whatever works best for you. All you'll need is a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen. Please keep the piece of paper safe, as you'll need this when we continue to write up our experiment later on and throughout the week. So keep this piece of paper safe, or if you're doing a book, please keep the book safe. So the first thing we're going to look at is the question, and our question is going to be, how does the wingspan of a paper helicopter affect its falling time? So everybody will need to have the exact same question as me, or maybe slightly paraphrased, but pretty much the exact same question as me. The second thing we're going to look at is the hypothesis. And the hypothesis is what we think is going to happen. And you can choose to copy my hypothesis, or if you're finding it difficult, it might be a good idea to copy my one. However, if you've had a chance to think about what will happen to it, you may have a different hypothesis. But my hypothesis is, I think that the shorter the wingspan is, the longer the paper helicopter will stay in the air. So I think when we cut the wings on the helicopter and make them smaller, I think it will stay in the air for longer. The next section we're going to do is the materials that we're going to need to use, and the materials that I'm going to use are paper, scissors, pencil, a ruler and a stopwatch. Now if you don't have any of these materials at home, try and be creative and use something different, or if you're really unsure, give us an email on the Year 6 account and we can give you some ideas or some suggestions. If you don't have an actual stopwatch, see if there's a mobile phone in the house that you can use with whoever owns it, their permission, or else someone can just count for you if you don't have a stopwatch. Right, the last thing we need to look at in our write-up before I pass you over to Mr. Jobber are the different variables. Now before I show you my variables, I want to explain what they are. We have 3 different variables. We have the independent variable, the dependent variable and the control variable. So the independent variable, which is the first one, is the one thing that's going to change. We can only change one thing in our experiment or else it won't be a fair test, and that's going to be our independent variable, the one thing we're changing. We then have our dependent variable, and our dependent variable is the one thing that we're going to measure or observe. So what are we going to look at closely? What's the thing we're most interested in finding out? And the third thing are the controlled variables, and they are the things that we're going to keep the same throughout the experiment. So they're the 3 different types of variables. I'm now going to show you what I've written up for my variables. Now that we know what the different types of variables mean and we understand that, we're going to think about what the variables for our experiment this week will be. So the independent variable is going to be the length of the wingspan. The dependent variable is the length of time until it reaches the ground, so the length of time for its descent. And the controlled variables are the height at which it is dropped and also the stopwatch that we use. It's important that we make sure we drop it from the same height every single time.
Thank you, Mr. Kurdoff. Hello, Year 6. Good morning or afternoon, whenever it is you're watching this. I hope you enjoyed the brilliant weather over the weekend. I know I spent a lot of time sat out in my little garden reading. Like Mr. Kurdoff said, we are on to our new big question this week, which is, does the wingspan of a helicopter affect its falling time? We've already been over some things with Mr. Kurdoff. You've been through your question, your hypothesis, your equipment, and you've had a brief look at variables, and I'm now going to show you how to make the helicopter. If you haven't already, I'll go back and take notes on the variables, because tomorrow we're going to be doing a bit of a quiz on it. Like an online quiz, where you can't respond. I'm going to ask questions and hopefully you can answer them. Yeah. I'm going to give you a second now to pause the video, get all of your equipment ready so that you're ready for making your helicopter. And off we go. Right then, let's give making this paper helicopter a go. Right, so we've got paper, A4 preferably, a pen or pencil, scissors, and I'm also using a ruler. Now you may not need these things. A ruler and scissors are not essential, but they're helpful if you got them. So first things first, fold your piece of paper in half. So you're folding it landscape. Be really careful to line up the edges, the corners, vertices. And then I like to really push down using the back of my finger. I use my fingernail there to really make the fold tight. And then reverse the paper and do it on the other side. This is so that we can then rip this piece of paper in half without using scissors. Of course, if you want to use the scissors, feel free. Start by making a tiny little tear and then gently pull the paper apart. Et voila. And you only need one of these bits of paper. So the other bit, you're just going to repeat that. So fold it in half again. As you can see, I'm really carefully lining up the corners here. And the same on the bottom. Make that fold nice and tight so you don't get some awkward ripping. Reverse it and then fold it again neatly. As you can probably tell, this is my first time filming myself doing something like this because the camera angles are everywhere. And again, start ripping. Start with a tiny tear at the top. Now what I do here is I make a bit of a, not the best tear. You can see there, if I keep ripping that, who knows where that's going to go. So if you have that, just flip it over to the other side and start the tear again. And as you can see, there's a tiny little bit there which I can take off. And for the final time, so it's the third time, fold your paper again lengthways, so you've got two thin bits here. And again, taking extra care because I messed up the last one. Now what I will say is this is probably my 5th or 6th attempt at this. It took me a lot of tries, so please do not worry if it takes you a couple of attempts to get this right. My bin is full of bits of paper that have been discarded where it hasn't worked out. So please don't feel like you have to get it right first time. I learned more through getting things wrong than I did through watching other videos and manuals online. Okay, so for this bit I'm going to use my ruler and my pencil. I've made a fold here just to estimate where half is, but if you notice it's only a light fold so it doesn't actually stay. And then about 1/2 centimetre above the line and 1/2 centimetre below the line I draw lines. I'm going to split one side of the paper in half. Now what you could do is you could measure exactly, and if you've got a ruler I would encourage you to measure exactly and then divide that by 2 to find out exactly how long each half should be. But what I've done is I've estimated here for the purpose of a video. Then split the other section, the top, into thirds. Again, if you've got a ruler available I would recommend using that. And I've drawn some circles here just to help me remember where it is I have to cut so I don't cut some unnecessary bits. So if you have got a pair of scissors, cut along those lines. If you don't have a pair of scissors, just use the same technique we used earlier on cutting the paper. Should work fine. And I'm cutting paper carefully. So now what you need to do is you need to fold your thirds in themselves. So I line up down the bottom there to make sure I've got a neat fold. And then I open it back up again after I've made a tight fold. And I do the same on the other side, and this will be the body of your helicopter. So make a nice neat fold again, and then finally fold both of those bits in on themselves like this. And then create a small fold at the bottom. So fold it up like that, and this stops it from coming loose. Fold over one of your wings one way and the other way, as close to on the line as you can. And ta-da! You have an incredible paper helicopter. Congratulations! Okay, so hopefully by now you've got 1, maybe 2 attempts at a helicopter. My first attempt didn't go so well, but the second attempt you saw me do went much better. Thank you for joining myself and Mr. Kilduff today. Tomorrow we'll be testing our hypothesis, so we'll be carrying out our investigation. We're going to collect our data and then record it. We're also going to look in more detail at the variables that you heard about from Mr. Kilduff earlier today. Just before I go, I'd like to say thank you to all of the children in Year 6 that have been listening to our read-along of our book Evernight on Repton Reads. If you haven't heard of it already, it's a really exciting book full of mystery and fantasy, and it's just a great book really. I really enjoy it. Make sure you head over to the Repton Reads channel and listen to our new episode that comes out every week. And if you send us your feedbacks and predictions, maybe we'll read some of them out. Thank you for joining us, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye!